Back here in Australia, do we need a Royal Commission into domestic violence? Joining me at the desk is Amanda Rose, founder and CEO of Small Business Women Australia. We've seen in the past few days the New South Wales, the Victorian government on the front foot with initiatives. What have you thought of the past few days?
I feel like Groundhog Day, right? Because we go through this on a regular basis where something happens and then governments start to sit down, have roundtables and discuss the issue. And the reality is it's the same thing that's happening all the time. They throw money at the problem, but the money's not enough. And the individual, say the woman who's trying to escape, has nowhere to go. And the bail laws, constantly they're saying, we'll review them. Nothing's changed. And this is on both governments. Don't forget Liberal was in before Labor here, and the same problem was happening then. What's lacking is accountability for the perpetrator, right? So the actual person who is causing that woman, like, for example, the people get AVOs or something, they go back out and go, right, I'm going to get revenge on you, and then she's scared for her life and then she gets killed. I'm like, well, why don't we look at that pattern and say, well, what needs to happen here? Do we need to be, I don't know, take women more seriously, but also AVOs are not worth the paper they're written on. So a policy or some cash splashing at the situation or a media alert's not going to do anything. But a Royal Commission, even though it would take a lot of money and a lot of time, potentially could allow a lot of people to have a voice in this space that normally wouldn't. How many victims get the opportunity to inform what needs to happen? Because governments think they know better, and we know that they don't.
And that's the thing about the Royal Commission, because some people say, oh, it's going to cost a lot of money. But the bottom line is it brings everyone to the table,
Yes.
and it will then bring money to the areas that need money.
Yes, it's who's heading it up is going to be key, right? Because it'll allow victims, it'll allow police officers, and we saw that gentleman on ex-policeman on Q&A actually point out saying, well, hang on a minute, these are the issues, and people are now starting to speak up that have been in the middle of it, either personally experienced it or they've seen, firsthand what's going on. We need those people designing policy, not governments just throwing money at something and then having a media release or a roundtable.
Well, Victoria's talking about increasing police powers in this area, also talking about electronic monitoring.
Yep.
What do you think of that?
Well, what's interesting, it's not the police powers that's the issue, it's the magistrate. It's actually the courts, because the courts are the ones that let them out on bail and they're making the decision. The monitoring, look, it sounds good and it's potentially good for maybe a certain group of people when it comes to domestic violence, but the reality is a bracelet or something on someone's ankle is not going to stop them from tracking someone down, hunting them down when they're in some psychosis because they want to kill them for revenge. So we need to protect the women. We need more shelters. We need more transitional shelters and housing. We need to be able to provide the woman a pathway to success, but then at the same time, the person who's responsible, they can't just get on with their lives and move on to the next victim, because that's what happens.
Yeah, and we also need money for the educational side of those men that are...
Yes.
already identify themselves.
Well, that's
as a
right.
problem.
That's right. A lot of people were raised in a way they think this is normal, so we've got to give them the benefit of the doubt. But also, the harder you are on people that mock the system and keep repeating the same behaviour, when other people see that they go to jail for that or they're being penalised for that, that can also change behaviour.
Yeah, absolutely. Change of pace. The federal government will wipe around $3 billion worth of student debt in the budget by changing the way HECS loans. Would you wish it was around when... Well, see, I'm that old that there was no HECS when I went through uni.
Let me tell you, I had a lot of HECS. The thing is that it was the indexation went up to 7.1%, right? It shouldn't have done that. Last year, so many people were impacted, and it impacted them so much that they couldn't get home loans because of that indexation on their HECS debt. And they felt like they were drowning and they were never going to get out of this. Now, we've got a government that's telling people, you have to get a degree for the jobs of the future, and then they did that. So this is a very good sign. They should have never increased it. In fact, I think universities should be free. If it wasn't such a money-making industry for both government and institutions, it should be free. For citizens of Australia, universities should be free. You know, the fact that we have free primary school, high school, it needs to continue, and TAFE should be free as well. But this is a good sign. I think it's great, but they need to also commit to not increasing it in the future.
it's intimidating for lots of parents because with cost of living, a lot of people, the whole thing was, oh, they're nearly through school. Well, you're going to have to help out with the uni as well.
It's ridiculous. I mean, and don't forget, you've got university books, you've got to work at the same time, try and manage working while you're trying to study, and this is for their future. And to penalise people for putting in the effort to study is quite repugnant.
So you like the idea of...
I do like it. Should never have happened, but we want a commitment that all governments won't increase it.
Right, now small business, Lou's is a big advocate. What's happened here?
Well, so every group deserves advocacy. So you've got the Business Council of Australia for the big end of town. You've got COSBOA, which represents a lot of associations, a lot of small businesses at the small end of town. They're working together now, lobbying the government. And the problem with that is that a small business need their own advocate, because their needs and their intricacies of what they go through is very different to big business. And we know that government sides with big business and works with big business a lot and ignores small business. So it feels that this is a positive because it opens up the industry or the area, Australia, for an independent association to represent small business separate. So I think, hey, if anyone's out there that wants to start one, they should. But what's really sad is I feel like constantly government's either paying off people with tenders or they're partnering with the big end of town thinking they need that for a voice. They underestimate the voice of small business.
Absolutely.
Right? They're one of the largest employers and they hold up the economy, and we need to give them the respect of having an independent voice.
They also underestimate it from the perspective of they are in contact with their constituents.
They are first-hand, like literally in contact with the kids. I find it quite funny because small businesses, they bring families together, communities together. They employ local communities, someone's son. They employ people's husbands and wives. And it's literally, you take out the small business, and a lot of people don't really pay much attention to that. But when one cafe shuts and another one shuts and the unemployment picks up in that suburb gets impacted and starts to drop.
Your business tip of the week, my friend?
Government lingo. So I think small business needs to read media releases. The government of the day will use particular lingo. Right now, it's net zero, sustainability, things like that, which they love to throw around. If you don't use that language, government won't listen to you. So look at your business. What areas can you align to of the government, whether it's state or federal, to say, you know what, we are doing something in that space, or we can support it in that space, so you can get access to tenders and subsidies.
Yeah, it's good advice. It's good advice. You mentioned media releases, and I'll wrap it with this with a little bit of advice for people that are crafting media releases together as someone that's been around a long time. Put something different in it. Put something that's going to attract someone's eye to it. You know, don't just write streams and streams of information because people will just...
That's right. Be different. And that's where your uniqueness of who you are and what you do. So that's why media agencies often lose that. It's the small business owner needs to send it direct to media.
Authenticity, and you've got it in bundles, my friend. Good to see you. We'll do it again next week.